I am Christina, 32 years old, and until yesterday, I thought my husband Jason was still deployed overseas with his unit. I never expected a simple family dinner at my in-laws would end with my mother-in-law slapping me so hard I crashed into the wall, my sister-in-law spitting in my face, and my brother-in-law laughing while recording the whole thing. They called me a gold digger who trapped their precious son and brother. They thought no one would ever know. They were wrong. If you want to know what happened when that door suddenly opened and their worst nightmare walked in, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button and get ready for a story about family betrayal and sweet justice. Before I dive into the horrific events of last night, you need to understand how Jason and I met and why his family seemed to hate me from the beginning, even though they tried to hide it at first. 4 years ago, I was working as an elementary school teacher in a small town outside of Fort Benning. I loved my job teaching third graders, and while the pay was modest, it was fulfilling work that made me happy. One weekend in June, my friend Olivia invited me to a barbecue at her place. I almost declined because I had papers to grade, but something told me to go. That something turned out to be fate. Jason was there visiting Olivia's husband who served with him. He was tall, confident, but not arrogant, with kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. When our eyes met across the yard, it was like one of those moments from a movie that you never believe happens in real life. He walked over with 2 drinks, handed me one, and said I was getting this for someone else, but suddenly I cannot remember who. His smile was so genuine that I laughed, and we ended up talking for hours. Our romance was a whirlwind. Jason was an army captain decorated for bravery during his previous tour, respected by his men, and dedicated to his country. We connected on every level, from our shared love of old black and white movies to our dreams of eventually settling down on a small farm somewhere quiet. After 3 months of dating, he introduced me to his family. The first meeting seemed to go well on the surface. His father, General Robert Williams, retired from the Army after 30 years of distinguished service, was polite but reserved. His mother, Barbara, came from old money and had that particular way of smiling that never quite reached her eyes. His sister, Vanessa, 2 years younger than Jason, hugged me a bit too stiffly, while his brother, Eric, the youngest at 25, barely looked up from his phone. They just need time to warm up, Jason assured me afterward. They are protective of me after what happened with my ex. He did not elaborate, and I did not push. I should have. When Jason proposed 6 months later, I was over the moon. We planned a small wedding, but his parents insisted on something grander. A Williams does not get married in a backyard, Barbara had said, with a tight smile. The wedding was at their country club with over 300 guests, most of whom I had never met. It was beautiful but overwhelming. During the reception, I overheard Barbara telling a friend, "She seems sweet, but I worry she is not built for military life. Teachers rarely are, and her family background is so modest." The words stung, but I brushed them off as wedding day stress. Jason always defended me when he noticed the subtle digs. Mom Christina grew up in a military family. Her father was a sergeant. She understands this life better than most. But the comments continued in veiled forms. Questions about my clothes, my career aspirations, whether I planned to actually work after having children. When Jason received orders for a 9-month deployment, I was heartbroken but supportive. The week before he left, we stayed at our small 2-bedroom house on base, shutting out the world. The night before his departure, he held me close and whispered, "I love you more than anything. Do not let my family get to you while I am gone. They will come around eventually." The first few months of his deployment were tough but manageable. I kept teaching video called with Jason when possible and avoided his family except for obligatory holiday gatherings. Then last week, Barbara called her voice warmer than I had ever heard it. Christina, darling, we have not seen you in ages. We miss you, and we miss Jason. Would you come for dinner on Friday? Just family. I am making Jason's favorite pot roast. The invitation surprised me, but I felt hopeful. Maybe this was the turning point, an olive branch extended in Jason's absence. I accepted and spent the next few days picking out the perfect gift for them. A beautiful custom photo frame with a recent picture of Jason in his uniform smiling proudly. I thought it would touch their hearts. As I drove to their sprawling mansion in the affluent part of town, I recalled Jason's words, "They just need time." Maybe time had finally worked its magic. I checked my appearance one last time in the rearview mirror, straightened my blue dress, the one Jason always complimented, and headed to the front door with a hopeful heart. Barbara answered her smile, practiced as always, but she welcomed me with a brief hug. "Come in, Christina. Everyone is waiting in the dining room." I stepped inside, clutching my gift bag, feeling a flutter of nerves but pushing them down. This was going to be a good night, a fresh start with my in-laws. I had no idea I was walking straight into a trap. The dining room was immaculate as expected. Crystal glasses caught the light from the chandelier, and the antique mahogany table was set with the family china. General Williams nodded at me from the head of the table, while Vanessa offered a tight smile. Eric barely acknowledged my presence, scrolling through his phone. "You look comfortable," Vanessa commented, eyeing my blue dress. The subtle emphasis made it clear this was not a compliment. I had dressed carefully in what I thought was appropriate for a family dinner, but suddenly felt underdressed compared to her designer outfit. "Thank you for inviting me," I said, placing the gift on a side table. "I brought something for all of you." "How thoughtful," Barbara replied, but made no move to open it. "Please sit down. The roast should be ready soon." The conversation during the first course was stilted, but civil. General Williams asked about my teaching job, though his tone suggested he was discussing a hobby rather than a career. "And how is the pay these days for teachers?" "Sufficient," he asked, cutting into his salad with military precision. "It is modest but rewarding," I replied honestly. "I love working with the children." He responded, exchanging a glance with Barbara. "And your parents, they are still in." "Where was it?" "Arizona," I supplied. "My father passed away 2 years ago, but my mother still lives in the same house." "That little bungalow you showed us pictures of," Vanessa interjected. "How quaint to stay in one place so long." Each question seemed designed to highlight my middle-class background, from inquiries about my student loans to comments about the charming simplicity of military base housing. I maintained my composure, answering politely and trying to steer the conversation toward neutral topics. "Jason mentioned in his last call that his unit has been doing some interesting community work," I offered. "Yes, we received a much more detailed email about his activities," Barbara replied. "I am surprised he did not share that with you." The implication was clear and it stung, but I smiled through it. Communication can be limited during deployment. I am grateful for any contact. As the main course was served, my phone buzzed in my purse. I normally would have ignored it, but given Jason's deployment, I always answered in case it was him calling from a new number. "Would you excuse me for just a moment? It might be Jason," I said, standing up. Barbara's expression tightened, but she nodded. I stepped into the hallway and answered, finding it was just a colleague asking about a shared lesson plan. As I was about to return to the dining room, I heard my name mentioned and paused. "She really thinks she has fooled everyone," Vanessa's voice carried clearly. "The gold digger actually believes Jason will stay with her." "Keep your voice down," Barbara hissed, though not quietly enough. "But yes, it is obvious she trapped him. The timing of their engagement right before he received his promotion and pay increase. Not a coincidence." "Did you see that cheap dress?" Vanessa continued, trying so hard to look like she belongs. When Jason gets back, we need to make him see reason, General Williams added. A brief talk with a good divorce lawyer, and this mistake can be erased before children complicate matters. I have been gathering evidence, Eric's voice now. Her background, her obvious interest in the family money. Jason will thank us when this is over. My heart pounded in my chest and tears threatened, but I blinked them back. I had suspected their disapproval, but the open hostility and deliberate plans to end my marriage shocked me to my core. My first instinct was to grab my purse and leave to escape this house of hidden daggers. But something shifted inside me. I thought of Jason, of our love, of the truth, of our relationship that these people were trying to twist and destroy. Running away would only seem to confirm their narrative. I took a deep breath, composed myself, and made a decision. I would confront this head-on calmly and with dignity. I returned to the dining room, and the sudden silence confirmed they had indeed been talking about me. 4 pairs of eyes watched me retake my seat, and I noticed Eric slide his phone into his pocket hurriedly. "Is everything all right?" Barbara asked with false concern. "Actually," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I think we need to clear the air. I just overheard some concerning comments, and I believe we should address them directly." The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly like a sudden drop in barometric pressure before a storm. I had no idea just how violent that storm would become. The silence that followed my statement was deafening. Barbara recovered first, her practiced social smile sliding back into place like a mask. "I am not sure what you think you heard, Christina, but I assure you there has been a misunderstanding." Her voice was honeyed, but her eyes had turned to ice. "I heard you call me a gold digger," I stated plainly. "I heard plans to convince Jason to divorce me when he returns from deployment. I heard Eric mention gathering evidence against me." Vanessa let out a sharp laugh. "Wow, paranoid much. We were discussing a television show. If you are going to eavesdrop, at least get the context right." I shook my head. "I know what I heard. And I understand you have concerns about my background and intentions, but I married Jason because I love him, not because of money or status." "Oh, please." Eric finally looked up, his expression contemptuous. "A teacher from a nobody family just happens to fall for one of the most eligible officers from one of the most respected military families in the state. Right after he gets promoted. Do the math." "I did not even know about his promotion when we got engaged," I replied, keeping my voice level. "And I have my own savings. I have never asked Jason or any of you for money." General Williams cleared his throat. "Young lady, you need to understand our position. The Williams family has a certain standing. Jason has a promising career and future. We simply want to protect him from impulsive decisions." Impulsive. I felt my composure slipping. We dated for 9 months before getting engaged. We have been married for 4 years. That is hardly impulsive. 4 years during which he has been deployed twice, Barbara cut in. When men are away, they idealize what they left behind. Jason will see clearly when he returns. "He sees clearly now," I insisted, pulling out my phone. "Just yesterday he texted me, saying how much he loves me, and how he cannot wait to come home to me." I opened our text thread to show them, holding up the screen with Jason's loving message, "Counting the days until I can hold you again. You are my heart, my home, my everything. 4 more weeks." Barbara's face contorted and she snatched the phone from my hand. "These could easily be manipulated. For all we know, you could be texting yourself from a second phone." "Give me back my phone," I demanded, standing up. "Or," what Vanessa smirked, "going to call the police on your mother-in-law for looking at suspicious texts." "Those are private messages between me and my husband," I said, reaching for the phone. Barbara pulled it away, handing it to Eric, who pocketed it. "We will just hold on to this until we can verify these are actually from Jason," he said smugly. "This is ridiculous," I said, my heart pounding. "You have no right to take my property or accuse me of lying. We have every right to protect our son." And Brother Barbara stood up now too, her considerable height allowing her to look down at me. "You wormed your way into his life, into our family, but you do not belong here. I am his wife," I said firmly, though my voice threatened to break, "whether you accept that or not." "A temporary situation," General Williams stated coldly, "one that will be remedied." They were closing ranks, and I suddenly felt physically trapped as Vanessa moved to stand beside her mother, both of them between me and the door. Eric remained seated but watched with undisguised amusement, as if enjoying a show put on for his benefit. "I think I should leave," I said, trying to maintain some dignity. "Please return my phone." "After you listen to what we have to say." Barbara stepped closer, invading my personal space. Her perfume was cloying, suffocating. "We know about your father's gambling debts. We know about your student loans. We know you were practically living paycheck to paycheck before meeting Jason." I gasped. "They had been investigating me. That is all true, and Jason knows all of it. My father struggled with addiction. Before he died, I worked hard to put myself through college, and I have never hidden any of that. It has nothing to do with why I married Jason." "Stop the innocent act," Vanessa spat. "Women like you are all the same. You saw an opportunity and took it." The accusations were piling up, each one more hurtful than the last. I felt tears threatening but refused to cry in front of them. "I need to leave. Now." I tried to step around Barbara, but she moved to block me. "Not until you agree to divorce Jason quietly when he returns. We can make it worth your while. A settlement enough to pay off your debts and start fresh somewhere far from here." The blatant bribery attempt was the final straw. "I would never take your money, and I will never leave Jason unless he asks me, to which he will not, because unlike you, he knows who I really am." That was when everything escalated from verbal to physical, crossing a line I never imagined they would cross. It happened so fast I barely had time to react. Barbara's face contorted with rage, her carefully maintained facade crumbling completely. Her hand flew up and connected with my cheek with such force that I stumbled backward, crashing into the dining room wall. The sound of the slap echoed in the suddenly silent room. The shock was more paralyzing than the pain at first. My cheek burned and I raised my hand to it, unable to process that my mother-in-law had actually hit me. In 4 years of thinly veiled hostility, it had never turned physical. "How dare you speak to me like that in my own home?" Barbara hissed, her voice trembling with anger. I was still trying to find words when Vanessa stepped forward. With a look of pure contempt, she spat directly in my face. The warm saliva slid down my cheek, mixing with the tears that had finally broken free. "Gold digger," she sneered. Eric burst into laughter, pulling out his phone again. "This is priceless," he chuckled, clearly recording the scene. "Wait until the guys at the club see this." The humiliation burned worse than the slap. I wiped my face with shaking hands, smearing tears, and spit across my cheek. I had never felt so degraded, so utterly dehumanized. "You are nothing," Barbara continued, her voice low and venomous. "A nobody who thought she could elevate herself by catching a Williams man. Let me make this perfectly clear, Christina. You will never be good enough for my son. Never." General Williams remained seated, watching the scene unfold without intervening. His silence was a tacit approval that cut almost as deeply as the physical assault. Jason will be disgusted when he finds out who you really are, Vanessa added. We have friends who have seen you around town while he is deployed. Friendly with other men, are we? That is a lie, I managed to say through my tears. I have never been unfaithful to Jason. Your word against ours, Eric? Taunted, still filming. And who do you think he will believe? The family who has supported him his entire life, or the gold digger who mysteriously appears right before his promotion? I pushed myself away from the wall, summoning whatever dignity I had left. I am leaving now. Keep the phone if you want, but Jason knows the truth. As I tried to move toward the door, Barbara stepped in front of me again. We are not finished. Yes, we are, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I will not stay here to be abused. Abused, Barbara laughed coldly. Always the victim. This is nothing compared to what will happen if you try to fight us on the divorce. We have resources you cannot imagine, connections in places that would make your simple little teacher life very difficult. The threats were becoming more explicit, and a thread of fear wound through my anger and humiliation. These people were powerful and clearly willing to cross lines I never thought possible. I need to get my purse and leave, I said, trying to sound calm, while my heart raced. After you agree to our terms, Barbara insisted. A quick, quiet divorce. A reasonable settlement in exchange for your silence about the family. A clean break. No, I stood my ground, though my legs felt weak. I will not be bullied or bribed. Vanessa moved closer, her perfume mingling with Barbara's in a suffocating cloud. You stupid, stubborn bitch. Do you really think you can win against us? This is not a competition, I said. I love Jason. That is all that matters to me. Love, Eric mocked, still recording. So touching. Tell us more about this great love story while I get your good side. I lunged for his phone, desperate to stop the recording, but General Williams finally stood moving with surprising speed to block me. That is enough, he said, but he was addressing me, not his children. You will leave this house, but not before you understand your position. We will be speaking to Jason, as soon as possible, about everything that has transpired in his absence, including your emotional instability. You mean the emotional instability of being slapped and spat on by my husband's family? I asked incredulously. That is not what the video will show, Eric smirked. Funny how editing works. I felt a new wave of panic. They were not just physically assaulting me. They were planning to manipulate evidence against me. This was calculated cruelty. Through my tears, I heard the front door open, but in the intensity of the moment, no one else seemed to notice or care. Heavy footsteps sounded in the hallway, drawing closer to the dining room. You will regret the day you ever met my son, Barbara was saying. Her finger pointed in my face. By the time we are finished, Jason will not even remember why he married you. I am calling a lawyer tonight, Vanessa added. I have a friend who specializes in military divorces. He says they are always messy, but money cleans up messes quite effectively. I was backed against the wall again, surrounded by 3 people who hated me for reasons I could never change, with a 4th documenting my humiliation. I had never felt so alone, so completely trapped. What exactly is going on here? The new voice cut through the room like a blade of ice, deep, authoritative, and terrifyingly familiar. Everyone froze. Standing in the doorway, still in his combat uniform, dusty from travel, was Jason. The silence that fell over the dining room was absolute. Barbara's pointing finger remained suspended in midair, her face draining of color. Vanessa took an instinctive step back, while Eric hurriedly lowered his phone. General Williams stood straighter, military training kicking in, even in shock. Jason's expression was unreadable as he surveyed the scene. His eyes moved methodically from his mother's aggressive stance to my tear-streaked face, noting the red mark blooming on my cheek. He was still wearing his boots and carrying his rucksack, clearly having come directly from the transport that brought him home. Jason Barbara recovered first her voice, instantly transforming into a warm, maternal tone. "What a wonderful surprise! We had no idea you were coming home today." She moved toward him, with arms outstretched, but Jason raised his hand, stopping her in her tracks. "Do not move," he said, his voice quiet, but hard as granite. "I want to understand exactly what I just walked in on." Barbara's smile faltered. "We were just having a little family disagreement. You know how emotional Christina can get sometimes. She misunderstood something we said and lashed out. I opened my mouth to protest this blatant lie, but Jason shook his head slightly, telling me to wait." "Is that so?" he asked, his gaze now fixed on Eric. "And you were recording this little disagreement because—" Eric shifted uncomfortably. I thought we might need it for, clarity later." Clarity. Jason repeated the word, hanging in the air. "Dad, your version." General Williams cleared his throat. "Son, this is a complicated situation. Perhaps we should discuss this privately, man to man." "No," Jason said firmly. "I think I have missed quite enough family discussions. Vanessa. Anything to add?" Vanessa glanced at her mother, then back at Jason. Christina was being hysterical. "You know how she gets." Jason nodded slowly, then finally turned to me. "Christina, what happened?" I took a shaky breath. "They invited me to dinner. I overheard them calling me a gold digger and planning to convince you to divorce me when you returned. When I confronted them, your mother slapped me, Vanessa spat on me, and Eric recorded it while laughing." "She is lying," Barbara interjected. "Jason, you cannot possibly believe—" "Stop talking, Jason," cut her off, his voice like a whip crack. "I was outside the dining room door for the last 5 minutes. I heard and saw everything." The blood drained from Barbara's face completely. "You must have misunderstood." "Did I misunderstand you, slapping my wife, Jason?" asked his control slipping for the first time, anger seeping into his voice. "Did I misunderstand Vanessa spitting in her face? Did I misunderstand the threats about making her life difficult, about manipulating evidence?" No one spoke. The only sound in the room was the ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the corner. "My deployment was delayed at the last minute." Jason continued, placing his rucksack on the floor. "I thought I would surprise everyone with the good news. Turns out I am the one who got the surprise." Son General Williams tried again. "We were only trying to protect you. This woman is my wife." Jason finished for him. "The woman I love. The woman I chose to spend my life with. And you just assaulted her in our family home." "It was hardly assault," Barbara scoffed, though her confidence was clearly shaken. "Tell that to the security cameras I had installed last Christmas," Jason replied coldly. "The ones covering every public room in this house, including this dining room." This new revelation sent another shock wave through the room. Eric's face went pale as he glanced up at the ceiling, noticing for the first time the small device nestled among the crystal pendants of the chandelier. "You recorded us?" Vanessa asked, her voice rising in panic. "I had them installed after the silver went missing," Jason explained. "Mom insisted it was one of the cleaning staff, but I wanted to be sure. Turns out they captured something far more valuable than stolen silverware tonight." He walked over to me, then gently examining my face, wiping away a tear with his thumb. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. I nodded, unable to speak through the knot of emotion in my throat. "Where is your phone?" he asked. "Eric took it," I managed to say. Jason turned to his brother, hand extended. "Give it to me. Now." Eric pulled my phone from his pocket and reluctantly handed it over. "Your car keys are in your purse," Jason asked me, and I nodded again. "Where is your purse?" "In the hallway," I whispered. "We are leaving," Jason announced, keeping his arm around me protectively. "But before we go, let me make something absolutely clear to all of you." He faced his family, his expression harder than I had ever seen it. "Christina is my wife. She is my family now, my priority, my heart. What you did tonight crossed every line of decency and respect. I have never been so ashamed to carry the Williams name as I am right now." "Jason, please," Barbara began, tears now forming in her eyes. "We only wanted what is best for you." "No," he cut her off. "You wanted what you thought was best for the family image. You never bothered to know Christina, to see what I see in her, to understand why I love her." He turned to his father. "You taught me that character is revealed in crisis, Dad. Tonight has been very revealing indeed." General Williams had no response, his military bearing failing him for perhaps the first time in his life. "We are going home," Jason continued. "And then I am going to review the security footage, file a police report for assault, and contact my lawyer. What happens next will depend largely on how you choose to proceed from here." "You would choose her over your own family?" Vanessa asked incredulously. Jason looked at her sadly. "I am not the one who created that choice. You are. And yes, I choose her, every time." He picked up my purse from the hallway and guided me toward the front door, leaving his stunned family frozen in the dining room. As we stepped out into the cool evening air, I felt the weight of the confrontation begin to lift, replaced by the overwhelming relief of having Jason by my side when I needed him most. The drive home was mostly silent. Jason kept one hand on the steering wheel and the other firmly holding mine, as if afraid I might disappear if he let go. I could see the muscle in his jaw working as he processed everything that had happened. "I am so sorry," he finally said, as we turned onto our street. "I had no idea they would. I never thought they could." "It is not your fault," I assured him, though my voice was still shaky. "You could not have known they would go that far." He pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine but made no move to get out of the car. I knew they could be difficult, elitist even, but physical violence, recording it, threatening you. He shook his head in disbelief. "There were signs over the years, comments they made, the way they treated my ex-girlfriend before you, but I dismissed it as overprotectiveness." "Your ex?" I asked, suddenly connecting dots. "What happened with her?" Jason sighed heavily. "Angela. She was from a similar background to yours, working class, putting herself through nursing school. They were cold to her, made her feel unwelcome, but it never got physical as far as I know. We broke up when I was deployed the first time. She said she could not handle the distance, but now I wonder if my family had something to do with it." We sat in silence for another moment before finally going inside. Our small house on base felt like a sanctuary after the nightmare at the Williams mansion. Jason placed his rucksack by the door and pulled me into a gentle embrace, careful of my still tender cheek. "I need you to know something," he said, looking into my eyes. "I have never doubted you, not for a second. I married you because you are the love of my life, not because of anything to do with family expectations or military tradition." I nodded, tears threatening again, but this time from relief. "I know. I never doubted that either." "Good," he said, kissing my forehead. "Now let us get some ice for your cheek, and you can tell me exactly what happened from the beginning." Over mugs of hot tea with an ice pack pressed to my face, I recounted the entire evening. Jason listened without interrupting, though his expression darkened several times, particularly when I described the physical confrontation and threats. "They will not get away with this," he said when I finished. "What they did was assault, plain and simple, and the blackmail threats the plan to manipulate evidence that crosses into criminal territory." "What are you going to do?" I asked, suddenly worried about escalating the situation. "First thing tomorrow morning, I am going to download the security footage," he said. "Then we are going to file a police report and get a temporary restraining order. After that, I will contact my commanding officer to explain the situation and then call our lawyer." "Are you sure? They are still your family?" I said, though part of me wanted justice for what they had done. "Family does not treat family the way they treated you," Jason said firmly, "and they need to understand there are consequences for their actions." The next morning, Jason was true to his word. He remotely accessed the security system and downloaded the footage, which clearly showed the entire confrontation, including Barbara slapping me and Vanessa spitting on me. The audio captured every threat, every lie, every moment of humiliation. At the police station, the officers were professional but clearly disturbed by the footage. A female officer gently photographed the bruise on my cheek, which had darkened overnight, while another took our statements. "You want to press charges, Captain Williams?" the desk sergeant asked, somewhat surprised given the prominent family involved. "Absolutely," Jason confirmed, without hesitation. "And we need information about obtaining a restraining order." By noon, we had filed the police report and submitted the paperwork for temporary restraining orders against Barbara, Vanessa, and Eric. General Williams had not physically assaulted me, but Jason included him in the order due to his complicity in the events. As we were leaving the courthouse, Jason's phone buzzed continuously with messages and calls from his family. He ignored them all, except for a text from Eric that made him stop in his tracks. "What is it?" I asked, seeing his expression harden. Eric posted a edited clip of last night online, he said, showing me the screen. "Cut to make it look like you were the aggressor." Tagged a bunch of military spouses and community members. My stomach dropped. "Oh no." "Do not worry," Jason said, his voice calm but cold. "He just made our case even stronger. Defamation on top of assault." We headed straight to the office of Major Harrison, Jason's commanding officer who had known the Williams family for years. I was nervous about how he would react given the family's standing in military circles. To my surprise, after viewing the unedited security footage, Major Harrison was unequivocal in his support. "This kind of behavior is unacceptable, regardless of who is involved," he stated firmly. "Captain Williams, please be assured that your career will not be affected by your family's actions or your decision to pursue legal recourse. In fact, I would have been concerned if you had not taken appropriate steps to protect your wife." The major also revealed something I had not known. Your family's wealth had nothing to do with your promotion, by the way. That was earned through your exemplary service record and leadership skills. I would have recommended you, regardless of your last name. Jason nodded, though I could tell this confirmation meant a lot to him. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate your support." As we left the base, Jason's phone buzzed again. "It is Jeff," he said, referring to one of his closest friends from the unit. "He says Eric's video is backfiring spectacularly. Several of the military spouses who were tagged recognized the editing tricks and are calling him out publicly. Apparently, Laura has the original footage now." Laura was the wife of Jason's platoon sergeant and an influential figure among the military spouses. She had always been kind to me, inviting me to events and checking in during Jason's deployment. "The community is rallying behind us," Jason said, a small smile breaking through his serious expression for the first time that day. When we returned home, we found several messages of support on our answering machine and a basket of home-cooked meals on our porch from neighbors who had heard about the incident. That evening, as we were trying to process everything that had happened, our lawyer called with an update. The police had questioned Barbara, Vanessa, and Eric separately, and their stories had contradicted each other significantly. Eric's public posting of the edited video constituted evidence tampering and potentially defamation. The restraining orders had been granted, and preliminary charges of assault and conspiracy were being considered by the district attorney. "They underestimated you," Jason said, as we sat on our porch swing that night. "And they definitely underestimated the consequences of their actions." "I never wanted this conflict," I admitted. "Part of me always hoped they would eventually accept me." Jason squeezed my hand. "I know, but sometimes people show you who they really are, and you have to believe them. My family showed us both who they truly are last night." "What about the money?" I asked. "They seem to think I married you for financial security, but we live in base housing and drive 10-year-old cars." Jason laughed. "That is the irony of it all. They assumed you knew about my trust fund from my grandfather. I have never touched it, never even told you about it, because it does not matter to me. We live on my military salary, by choice." "You have a trust fund?" I asked, genuinely surprised. "See Gold Digger of the Year right here," he teased, gently kissing my forehead. "Yes, I have a trust fund that matures when I turn 35. But I have never planned to use it for anything other than maybe buying that small farm we talk about someday when I retire from active duty." The revelation was just one more confirmation of how little his family had understood our relationship, how little they had bothered to know me or respect their son's choices. As the weeks passed, the legal proceedings continued. The Williams family hired expensive lawyers, of course, but the evidence was irrefutable. In the end, they accepted a plea deal that included probation community service, mandatory counseling, and a significant financial settlement that we immediately donated to a charity supporting military families in need. More importantly, the experience had revealed who our true friends were. The military community closed ranks around us, offering support and understanding. My colleagues at school sent flowers and covered my classes when I needed days off for court appearances. And Jason and I discovered that our bond was stronger than any external force that tried to break it. 6 months after that fateful dinner, we had moved forward with our lives stronger and more certain of our path together than ever before. 6 months after that terrible night, Jason and I are sitting on the front porch of our new home, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. We moved off base last month, finding a charming 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from Fort Benning. Not quite the farm we dream of eventually owning, but a significant step up from base housing and a place that is truly ours. "Penny for your thoughts?" Jason asks, handing me a mug of hot chocolate despite the Georgia evening, still holding on to the day's warmth. "Just thinking about how much has changed," I reply, accepting the mug gratefully. "Good changes mostly. And they have been good changes." After the incident, I took a leave of absence from my teaching position to focus on healing both physically and emotionally. The bruise on my face faded within weeks, but the psychological impact took longer to process. With the help of a therapist who specializes in family trauma, I have worked through many of the emotions that threatened to overwhelm me in the aftermath, the hurt, betrayal, and lingering fear. When I was ready to return to work, a position opened up at the school on base, teaching military children whose lives are constantly disrupted by deployments and relocations. It feels like the perfect fit, using my own experiences to help these resilient kids navigate their unique challenges. Jason has been my rock throughout this journey. He never once wavered in his support, attending every therapy session I asked him, to holding me through nightmares in the early weeks and ensuring I never had to face his family alone during the legal proceedings. "Have you read the email from your mother?" I ask, broaching the subject carefully. Jason sighs. "Yes. She wants to meet for coffee next week. Says she has been consistent with her therapy, and has things she wants to say to both of us. Barbara's mandatory therapy was part of her probation requirements, but according to her therapist's reports submitted to the court, she has gone beyond the minimum sessions, seemingly committed to understanding her controlling behavior and sense of entitlement. What do you think, I ask? Are you ready to see her? Jason considers this for a moment. I think I am. Not for her sake, but for mine. For ours. Carrying this anger around is exhausting. The path to reconciliation with the Williams family has been complicated and is far from complete. General Williams was the first to offer a genuine apology, his military discipline, perhaps making him more accustomed to acknowledging mistakes and accepting consequences. He has maintained a respectful distance, writing formal letters to both Jason and me that acknowledge his failure to intervene and his complicity in creating a hostile environment. Vanessa took longer to come around her initial apology, clearly forced and insincere. But 3 months into her community service at a women's shelter, something shifted. The director told us that working with women who had experienced domestic violence had opened her eyes to the impact of her own actions. Her most recent letter seemed to reflect a genuine change in perspective. Eric has been the most resistant to making amends. The exposure of his edited video and the subsequent damage to his reputation among his peers hit him hard. He lost an internship opportunity and faced significant social backlash. His court-mandated anger management classes continue, and Jason occasionally receives terse updates. But no real apology has been forthcoming. I never thought forgiveness would be such a complicated process, I admit, leaning against Jason's shoulder. Part of me still gets angry when I think about that night. But another part recognizes that holding on to that anger only hurts me. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or allowing them back into our lives on the same terms, Jason reminds me. It means freeing ourselves from being controlled by what happened. This has become our mantra over the past months, a reminder that establishing boundaries is not the same as harboring resentment. We have created a careful structure for any contact with the Williams family, limited supervised interactions that protect our peace while allowing for the possibility of genuine change over time. One unexpected positive outcome from this painful chapter has been my involvement with a support group for military spouses. What began as seeking support for myself evolved into co-leading meetings, creating a safe space for others to share their challenges, including the often unspoken difficulties with in-laws and extended family dynamics in military marriages. Laura called today, I tell Jason. The group is expanding to a second meeting night because we have so many participants now. Jason smiles proudly. You have turned something painful into something helpful for others. That is who you are, Christina. That is one of the countless reasons I love you. I take his hand, still marveling sometimes at how solid our connection remains despite everything that tried to break it. I have news, I say, my heart fluttering with excitement and nervousness. Jason turns to look at me, eyebrows raised in question. I am pregnant. I say the words still new and wondrous on my lips. 8 weeks along. I confirmed it with the doctor yesterday. Jason's expression transforms, joy breaking across his features like sunrise. Really, we are having a baby. I nod, tears of happiness welling up. We are having a baby. He pulls me gently into his arms, mindful of my condition, even though I have assured him I am not fragile. This is amazing news. How are you feeling? Good, mostly. A little morning sickness, but nothing too bad. I hesitate before adding, I have been thinking about family a lot, obviously. About what kind of parents we want to be. What kind of extended family our child will have. Jason understands immediately what I am not saying. We get to define what family means for us and for our child. We will surround them with love and with people who demonstrate respect, kindness, and healthy boundaries. Do you think your parents, your family, should be part of our child's life? I ask the question that has been weighing on me. I think that depends entirely on their continued actions, not their words or promises, Jason says thoughtfully. If they can consistently show they have changed, if they can respect our boundaries and treat both of us with genuine respect, then yes, I would want our child to know their grandparents and aunt and uncle. But only if it is safe emotionally and physically. His measured response reassures me. We are on the same page as we have been throughout this journey, partners navigating difficult terrain together. As twilight deepens around us, I reflect on the lessons of the past 6 months. I have learned that standing up for yourself is not selfish, but necessary. That true love includes protection and advocacy. That family is defined by actions, not blood. And perhaps most importantly, that even in our darkest moments, we have the capacity to find strength we never knew we possessed. What does not break us makes us stronger, I murmur, quoting one of our therapist's favorite sayings. Jason kisses the top of my head. We were already strong. Now we are just unbreakable. As we sit in comfortable silence watching the first stars appear, I feel a deep sense of peace. The road ahead will have its challenges, as all roads do, but we will face them together, wiser for what we have already overcome. Have you ever stood up to family members who treated you unfairly? What gave you the strength to set boundaries with difficult in-laws? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that they are not alone in navigating complicated family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you deserve respect in every relationship in your life.